Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise. Welcome to the Design Dash podcast. I'm Laura Umansky, your co-host, here with Melissa Grove. Hey, Melissa. Hello. And today's guest is Lori Paranjape, the powerhouse behind Miss Paranjape Design and Interiors. And we're going to talk about that last name because, like Umansky, yours is also...
It's tricky.
It's tricky. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But Lori is based in Nashville. She has built a nationally recognized design firm known for its fearless elegance and unmistakable charm. Her work has graced the pages of Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, and Domino, and she's collaborated with top influencers and high-profile clients across the country. What we admire so much about Lori is how she's built not just a beautiful portfolio, but also a distinctive brand and a thriving business. And she brings equal parts style and strategy to everything she does, which we can really get on board with, and can't wait to dig into the lessons you've learned along the way. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, so let's talk about these last names real quick because Umansky, like you would think Umansky, you just say it like it's spelled, right? Like,
well, I say it like it's spelled. You, on the other hand, sometimes have a little stutter.
Right? I mean, what in the world? Yes, I right. So I mean, we were just at snowboarding nationals for one of my daughters, and they have like live broadcasting, and so they say her name, and her name is Liv Umansky, and the announcer says, "Okay, so next up is Liv Umansky," and I'm like, "What in the Liv? Seriously?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so tell us. I would have said Paranjape, which is
Paranjape. We get a lot of Paranjape. We get a lot of Paranjape.
Like they want to make that's fancy,
right? They want to make us, Latina or lots of versions of things. It's just unfamiliar. My favorite thing is when people are typing and I'm saying my name, I'm like Paranj, and they hover. They're like N's and J's don't go by. I'm like, keep going.
You're like, where's the J on the keyboard?
Right? Yes.
Okay. So
my husband's family is from Mumbai.
Love it.
So people see me and they're like, I don't get it. And I'm like,
it is just fancy as hell. So I'm all about it.
Thanks.
So just like your last name, your design work is fearless. I think it's a fearless last name, right? Sounds like it. Anywho, segue. Your business is thriving. It sounds like things are just rocking out in Nashville. So I'm really curious, what part of your personality do you feel like shows up most often in your business?
Wow. Not what the question was going to be that I thought it was going to be. What part of my personality? I would say one of the most common things people say is that I am direct.
Okay.
So I feel that like there's kindness in my directness, but it is direct. I'm direct when I talk to clients about or potential clients about money. I'm direct when we talk about budgets. I'm direct when we talk about boundaries. I'm direct when we talk about all of those sorts of things. So perhaps that translates a bit into what we do, that our design work is pretty direct. I try to be clear with the clients about the things that are important to us that I think should stay. And then we talk through how the money works. But, these are the things that I think are important splurges. And these, I think, are the investment items. Here, we're going to hide a little something that no one will know that we hid, but it's there and it supports us without being the most expensive piece in the house or the most expensive element. So personality wise, and I am a people person. I like to be relatable. I like our projects, even though they're expensive, I like them to feel comfortable and warm and relaxed. I say all the time, we design for real people. So we don't have homes that aren't livable or sofas you can't sit on. That's not my game. So I think relatability is also pretty high up there on the personality traits that we translate into our design projects.
I love it. I feel like Melissa is like gonna love everything you just said about being direct but kind. And we've done a whole podcast on this. Like, Melissa, I feel like this is going to resonate with you. Am I right?
Yes, I love just kind of telling it like it is. And I think you can be kind while being direct. It might not be nice, but it's kind. And I do think that there's a distinct difference, and I'm all about that. And I think it comes through in your projects as well. I mean, one of your projects that I just absolutely I'm following right now is because I'm from Indianapolis. And the home that you're doing in Carmel is just chef's kiss. I love everything about it. I love the renderings too. I was just like, I might have to ask you later who's doing the renderings, because I might have to.
Right? Yeah. So we have gotten to do recently, and we're sort of, kind of honing in on it a bit more, that we're getting to do what I'm starting to call these legacy properties, where it's
It
not
definitely
just
is.
house. It's not just, like, oh, we bought a 0.5 acre and we're going to spend 4 million and we're going to pop a house onto that lot. It's, oh, we bought a property. And the first thing we want to do is put the family home there, or, this is where we want the gym. Eventually we want the chicken coop over here. And here's where the barn goes. And this is where, we're going to build a house for my parents to live. And these legacy properties are really something to sink our teeth into. And that Carmel, Indiana project is for sure, I mean, legacy property like
Yeah,
this.
I love the way that you're marketing it too, because I feel like that's coming through in at least what I see on Instagram. Like you're doing it room by room, you're showing the renderings, then you're showing your mood boards around it, like you're showing your plans around it. I think it's just a really well done story. And in our Design Dash community, we've been talking a lot in March about marketing. It was marketing month. And we're talking a lot about how to market yourself effectively on Instagram. And I always tell people you need to tell a story. Like you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like there has to be some journey that you're taking the customer through. You can't just show them a mood board and have it just be like, oh gosh, don't you see how beautiful that is? And I think that you do a really excellent job. So if anybody's out there, take a look at Lori's Instagram. I think that is, when I'm talking about telling a story, that's what I'm talking about, particularly with that project.
I mean, it really, we think through message, like what are we trying to say? Who are we talking to? Who is listening? Who do we want to be listening? Who's also listening? Like we'll have an audience, a target audience, and then we also have other people who are listening. So right now we're on a design podcast, right? So a design community is listening to us today. But on Instagram, I'm sort of half talking to my design community. And then the other half is my potential client pool of, of people who we may eventually work with. So those messages can't be at odds, right? I can't be like, oh, get that money, sign that contract. And then my potential clients are like,
yeah,
like,
what is she about? Right.
Right. Clutching their pearls because it's so like business driven. So it's complex, right? It's a complex message. It's to more than one audience member.
That is, yeah, that's complicated.
It is. I think it's a hard line to kind of weave around, because I think every designer does the same, right? You want to stay authentic to yourself, and you want to talk about your design to that potential new client. I would say, 90% of the time plus, I want to market to the ideal client, of course, and the aspirational client will follow. But then you're right. There's also these other tertiary groups. There's builders, there's your partners, there are your vendors, and they're following you too, probably even more closely than a new client is. And so you don't want to make them feel left out.
Right. Yeah. So you got to think about everybody.
And so you've built this business. It's blending creativity and this marketing, like the smart marketing and operational excellence. What's something about the way that you work that people might be surprised to learn? Like design business owners, what may they be surprised about?
I read something, I shared it with my husband this morning. It said, your first, I'm going to read it to you guys because I thought it was so profound, and it's a lot of what we focus on when we're thinking through all of the things that we're thinking through on a regular basis. And it says your first $1,000 is from work. Your first $100,000 is from skill, and your first million is from systems. And the past 5 years and then 2 years intensively have been about our systems. And oddly, it sounds like we're business interior focused, but really that system is about what that feels like for a client.
Mm-hmm.
And the elimination, our goal being the elimination of questions from clients because they've been so thoroughly answered and so thoroughly explained, and they so thoroughly understand by the time they give us informed consent that the number of questions they have to ask us are so few that they feel they don't have those spikes of fear, they don't have those spikes of misunderstanding, they don't have those sort of temperamental emotions that are very often hand in hand with design projects. And we're fully enmeshed in all of my beginning projects. Do not get it twisted. Like I was up in that trouble all the time, getting, yelled at, fired, all of the
Yep.
things because I didn't have it. I mean, I did not like the room maybe looked pretty, but the shit show was happening when I was trying to figure out what my systems were. So these past, especially 2 years when we're really working on that, I don't know that we really talk about that as much on stories, like Melissa, what you were referencing. But in our house here where we work, systems is the focus. Like, so people think, I know everyone thinks pretty, oh, it's so pretty, or, oh, I would love to do your job for a day. I'm like, what?
So glamorous.
Oh, it's so glamorous. Yeah. Knocking those spreadsheets out. Right. I mean, then there is glamour. And of course, we get these huge rewards and that part is amazing. But we are definitely putting the work into those systems to create this phenomenal client experience that comes from figuring your systems.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to talk about too, is that early on, it is a lot about being reactive. Like you said, you're putting out fires, you're dealing with the shit show. Like it is a mess and you are building, and it's not perfect. But then once you get to a certain point, number of years or team members or whatever it is, then you start to anticipate what those clients' needs are. And we, I think, have followed a really similar trajectory, and we're very focused on what we call the guided design experience. We are here as a guide, and we don't want there's nothing I hate more than a client text that is upset or worried or like, hey, what's happening tomorrow? What do you mean? We didn't tell you what's happening tomorrow? How in the hell did that happen?
Question, right? Like when they have questions, something's wrong.
Yes, and I haven't thought about it that way. Like we need to take every question out of here. Cause I mean, realistically that there are going to be some questions, but the more you can anticipate, the better that experience is going to be for the client, but also for you. You're not going to have, as a designer, right?
Well, I mean, what you're referencing, what we taught our language here is we call those tummy ache emails and texts. Like, what is the text that gives me a tummy ache? What is the email that gives me a tummy ache? They inevitably, they either come at like 4:45 on a Friday.
Oh, hell yes. That's exactly when they get there.
Right. Like early
or a Sunday night.
Right. Early in my career, the questions were like, I saw you dropped off the ottoman in our entirely empty room. Is it blue? Was it supposed to be blue? Is it small? Like, is the rest of the room going to be blue? Like question, right? And now we understand questions come from fear and lack of understanding. We're dealing with their money and all of a sudden they have a fear about their money. And then they come to us and they ask what that question is. And when we have a repeat question, what I'm trying to do now is listen. Okay, so that's the second person that has, the second builder who has asked us about the edge of a soap niche. So we can't ever leave a tile store again without having either in the field, they're going to radius edge that natural stone, or we're going to use a slab at the base of the soap niche. So now we have a new form that we built in-house. And then when we go, every answer on the form gets filled out, because otherwise somebody across the room says, hey, what's the base of the soap dish in so-and-so's shower? And I'm like, I guess a slab. And then I'm not thinking through that the slab is dark and the walls of the tile are light.
And then you got to go back and dig all the information up from earlier in the project. But
we're getting a question more than once. That means it's a commonly occurring question. What are we not answering ahead of time during our standard practice, that now that needs to move into our standard practice and becomes our process. And now we don't ask questions across the design studio and we knee jerk something without an open file, without looking at the elevations, without looking at the other materials, and we, make fewer mistakes.
In our studio, we talk a lot, to this point, we talk a lot about thinking in 3 dimensions. And I feel like it's pretty typical that the younger designers or those that are newer to the industry may come out of school thinking in 2D. They're not necessarily thinking about the implications of one decision, like you said, impacting a soap niche or an edge profile later down the road. So do you find that that's pretty typical in your training process? Do you institute that with your new designers?
We try to. I do not come from a corporate background, and like, having a team is new in the past 6 years for me. And so I'm sort of learning what that looks like, onboarding. I was just talking to our newest hire when we were on a trip, when we were in Carmel and we're on the way back. And I was saying, we only interview people who check the boxes of the skills that are required for the job. So you have a design degree, you are a cat ass, you have Photoshop, you have like all of these things. That's the minimum, right? That's what potentially gets you an interview. The hire is a personality hire. And then we bring in that personality that is looking forward to and accepting of our systems. So the skills are that's just required. So now, who are you? How do you learn? How do you get along with others? How well do you pick things up? And so our systems, they have to learn that part. They just they already speak the base language. And now we begin the prep of how we like to do it. And so we talk about that a lot. I'll hear one of the designers say to a junior designer, like, oh, Lori doesn't like XYZ.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's part of the standard. It's not written down. Maybe that's a process for next year. Right.
Yeah. When you are in that hiring process, what are some green flags and what are some red flags when you're bringing somebody on into your team?
Do you guys want to know my interview question that I love?
Yes.
My interview question that I love is, who are you in your friend group and who are you in your family group? Are you the problem solver? Are you the mom? Are you the problem maker? Are you the baby of the family? Are you like, it's important how they say it back, right? How they self-identify, because this is not really something that I can fact check, but it does tell me a bit, because we're a work family. We all know how much time we spend together with our work teams, and a healthy work environment produces healthy work. And we need someone who identifies as someone who plays well on their team socially and who plays well on their team and their family. And so that is a little bit of information that's important to us when we're making that personality hire, that they identify as something that would be helpful, useful, and welcome on our team.
Have you ever gotten like a really crazy response to that question that you were like, what?
We did have one, and what she said was that she was the troublemaker or the something, like a bit of a disruptor, which, not super green flag. Like, we have,
maybe you're a creative,
right? Like, but we have about 15 women around here, and there's no ugliness. You can't be mean to people. You cannot be rude. You can't be happy when other people fail. You have to cheer even if you don't have a win and someone else gets one. Like, all that dynamic is incredibly important in order for us to be vulnerable and creative. So that's what we're looking for when we're talking to hires. Like, I have successful people have found that when they are continuously successful in front of other people, sometimes your crowd gets quiet. And that's tricky.
Yes.
and there's resentment or competitiveness or all sorts of things. So that is something that we're very aware of when we're bringing people in, is that they are excited for other people's wins,
Yeah.
even if they did not have a hand in that win.
They're going to be loud for you.
And that's not always easy. Like,
yeah, it's
every
not.
single one of us has experienced what that feels like. Someone's cheering and you're like, yay. Like,
Side eye.
yay, ooh, another win. Super.
And we, at our studio, so we're about, it sounds like you have about 15 people. We're similar in size. We're 15-ish. But we have had to, over the years, just say, and this has been a long time that we've said this, and we say it when we're hiring, we talk about our core values, but we also emphasize that we have zero tolerance for diva behavior. And that's really what we mean. Like, don't come in here and act like an asshole. And if there's going to be backbiting, if there's gossip, if there's tension, we're going to, like you said earlier, you're very direct. We want to address that head on, because we have no time for that. I have no patience for that. It's just not the way to act. And there's the right way to address it too. But we've had a couple of instances where we've had to cut people pretty immediately because of some bad behavior, and we won't tolerate it. And we need the team to see that we aren't going to tolerate that, because if we're tolerating that, then what does that say about like us as an organization, or me as a leader, or Melissa as a leader? Like that, it's just not good. So I think, a
healthy work environment is not something to be taken lightly. Like, it is a really important part of what we do.
I feel like we slip, sometimes, and it gets into that kind of borderline toxic situation where you're so busy and everyone's heads down and we're just busy. And you have to kind of backtrack and recalibrate. Have you found that happens with your firm as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, we get it. Like, if I find myself not really looking forward to going into the office.
Yep.
Like, what is my lack of motivation? What is preventing me? What is the bad? What do we need to work on? Do we need like a little family lunch? Do we need, what do we need to sort of get that back? Why am I, if I'm not enjoying it and it's mine, are they enjoying?
What the hell's going on? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if anybody, I don't know if I'm not allowed to cuss on here, but if anybody on our team,
we've already broken that.
If anybody on our team is going to fuck up, it's probably going to be me.
Yeah.
So like, I'll step in, and like I said today, we have a cabinet and wallpaper and a bunch of other things this afternoon. And I was like, so remind me, have we submitted and approved all cabinet colors? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, good. Because otherwise I would have gone and been like, what about this color? And what about this species? And have you guys thought about walnut? And my team's like,
we've already done white oak.
It's approved. What are you doing? But if someone's gonna be the one to muck it, it's your girl right here.
It's interesting too that you've talked a lot about process, and you're putting those processes in place. And I find when I'm dragging my feet or feeling like I don't want to be, not in the office, because we work hybrid, so we're not always in the studio. But if I'm not wanting to focus on work, it's often because there's some process that we've instituted that's over processed that I no longer want to deal with because it's soul sucking. I mean, Melissa, when you say that's fair, like that's kind of what keeps, I don't know, I feel like that's what weighs me down.
I love process. So I don't know if that's the right answer for me. I'm really big on managing by system and not by meeting, or not by...
But you're on the operation side. Like on the design side, I don't know. I feel like those guys just get bogged down in process, and then they're all unhappy.
I mean, I think whatever it's just like when we're the client, right? Like if something's wrong, like if something is not clicking and feeling great, a little zoom out is typically in order for me to be like, what are you doing? What did you do all last week that made you not want to go in this week? Or like, what's our problem? What's the problem? What's wrong?
Yeah.
And can we zoom out just a bit? And do we have something that's already in place? We just need to adjust it. Do we truly just need to drink margaritas together?
That may be the answer.
Happy again?
I feel like a lot of the issues are, I mean, at least for me, when I'm feeling unmotivated, it's me. It's internally me.
Yeah, me
And
too.
so I think that's why, I mean, you're absolutely right, Laura, like pulling yourself up out of it and like first thinking like, okay, is the problem me? That's gotta be my first question, because I feel like often like, I don't know, 9 times out of 10, it probably is.
100%. Yeah. And so like even this morning, cause like I was saying this, it's Tuesday, but it feels like a Monday for me because I've been out of the office, but not for anything fun. And then I'm like, do I need a vacation? Like, do I need to just step out of it? And like you just said, get that 30,000 foot view because I'm so in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's vacation city. So tell me about this because we work with clients with high expectations. We work in an industry that it's about sometimes about the surface and how beautiful things are oftentimes. So what's one non-negotiable that you hold on to? Like if you're on a job site, in a team meeting, or even at home in your personal life, what's a non-negotiable for you?
Like a boundary? Do you mean?
Yeah, like a permission to play. Like this is just, it has to happen. Yeah, a boundary is a good one.
I think for me, I, in order to perform at my highest level, and what I try to remind my clients is they want me at my best,
Mm-hmm.
is I need to feel the trust so I can be my best. When I feel, so I like to say I don't squeeze my clients. They sit voluntarily in my hand. And if they try to leave, they should probably leave. If they sit and stay, then they're mine. They're meant to be. There's no chasing, there's no
Yes.
squeezing, right?
Yes.
Like they sit, they
Yeah.
rest comfortably right there. So then the same sort of goes for me, but with my clients, if they're questioning things, if they're second guessing everything, if they're modifying everything, if they're, doubting everything, then I'm like, can we have a family meeting? Like in the nicest way. I'm going to say it the not nice way because it comes out nicer when I do say it.
Right.
But it's, did you love everything that I've done for the past 6 years that you've been following? Do you love to see what we end up with in the end? Are you madly in love with our portfolio? Do you love what you have seen and now you are beginning to question it? Like if I'm your girl, and of all the girls in all the world, I'm the one that you chose, and you agreed to our outrageous design fees, and you had already entered into this process with us. What's the problem?
Yeah.
Like, do you like in the worst way? Like, I'm your stallion. Like, I am. Like, you want me running fast. You want me performing. You want me daydreaming in my car and slacking one of my team members in the middle of the night because I had a really cool idea, and saving things on Instagram and taking screenshots of stuff. Like, that's where you want me. And when you interfere in the thing that I do the best, you actually do not get a better product. In fact, you very clearly get a worse one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So when we're operating in that place of trust and they're like, you freaking go. You run so fast.
Don't rein me in.
Like when I'm there and they're there, and then there's this magic that can happen, and there's a space, and they trust in the magic and they trust in the process to get us to the magic, then you get me, like you get every bit of me. Like I am in. And when you are picking at the process, and when you are picking at the threads, and
Yes, we talk about this.
like it is a very quick dissolution of a very big idea when those threads are pulled.
You pull that thread, it's going to unravel something, I don't know, 5 rooms away. Like, don't pull.
Don't pull. And why are you pulling?
Right. That's it. Well, that's what I was going to say. So at this come to Jesus meeting, your family meeting with the client, if you have this meeting, are you taking it, like, how are you doing this? Are you reminding them of their why? Like bringing them back to the why? How do you make someone have trust. Like you can't force them. Like you said, they're just kind of sitting in the palm of your hand. You're not squeezing.
That's right. That's right. So where
but can
are
you remind them of why
we?
they want to trust you?
I had the most bizarre first time conversation with someone who wants us to furnish this big, beautiful house that she bought. And she rejected 4 or 5 design intent presentations. Yeah, which is unusual. A lot of the time we do a presentation, they're like, holy shit, yes.
And that's it.
Take my money, can't wait. Other people are like, oh, I love that. My sister has that piece of art. My sister has that, whatever, right? And then we make an adjustment, or, oh, he would die if we didn't have a sofa there and we had chairs instead. And so, right. So then we adjust it and then they bless it and then off we go. But we went through this and I'm like, told my team to modify, take it out of a room view, put it into products and just show products instead. And maybe she'll see it a little differently. And then that didn't work. And she came to town. We had this really frank conversation. And I was like, I might not be your girl.
Yeah.
I might not be it. I might we're out of creative. I'm now presenting things to you that I think you'll say yes to. That is very what you not want me to not do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want me to present things that you'll just say yes to. You want me to present you with things that I think are fucking incredible.
Right. Push them. Yes.
And that's where you want me. And that's
where the trust comes in.
So where are we? Like, what is it? Is there something I can adjust? But after today, if we're not then let's have a drink next time we're in town. And,
that's great.
Give you the names of super talented people that I know who will design a beautiful house for you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just not it. And the harder I would have squeezed that, the worse it would have been. And the more tangled we would have become, and the more invoices would have been started and stopped. And right, like we were just heading for something. And she, at the end of that, was like, I'm in.
Okay, good. Well, that's the result you want.
And has been in. But it was a tricky conversation.
Yeah.
Like when I left my house that morning, I told my husband, I'm like, this is going to go one of 2 ways, but my tummy is a little nervy.
Yeah.
Going
Have
into
you always
this.
dealt with that so directly, or was that something that you learned over time? You needed to be that in order to get them to go to yes.
I mean, I was terrible at it. And so many mistakes, like nothing but mistakes, right? Like, I don't know how I got to the yes, like figured out the little beginnings of yeses, our budgets were small and the projects were small and the trust was non-existent and, sort of worked on that. But in the beginning, I was just trying to get people to say yes. And so I was saying anything I could to get a yes, can I give
you whatever you have to do?
$20,000 budget and you furnish the house and it's finished in 6 weeks. And I'm like, $20,000? What?
Done.
Oh my gosh, yes. Right? Like worry about the rest of that later. It seems like there's a bunch of promises in there, but that's not now. That's later. And I disappointed some people and I didn't perform and I didn't deliver and I didn't communicate. And I hesitated when I would send an invoice, that like scary, like, boop, sort of thing. And now that's part of my talk when I'm on that first inquiry call and I'm giving them all the hairy, scary details all in the beginning. Because right now they want me, right? So this is my opportunity to tell them all the worst parts about it, right? And so I sort of lead with those things now so they cannot do it if they don't want to. But part of what I say is I cannot hold my breath when I send an invoice.
No. Yeah.
That we've already discussed it. You already know what my fees are. That's set up to bill monthly. That's done. When it comes time for invoices, we already had this scary conversation about how much it's going to cost to make it look like this Instagram that you showed me and this Instagram that you showed me. My project that was here that you loved in Boston, this one that you loved in Lexington, this one that you loved in Cashers. I told you how much that cost. They already know. So if I send an invoice, they're like, Let's go.
Done. Not a surprise.
One step closer to that big reveal day. Can't wait to hold my glass of champagne when you open the front door. Like,
Yep.
I can't be scared to send an invoice.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling, right? Like no one ever wants that feeling. It's terrible. And I think that we're similar. So I'd like to know how you bill if you're open to sharing. Is it fixed sum? Is it hourly? Is it hybrid? What are you doing?
It is a flat rate.
Flat rate. Okay.
I bill a flat rate. That it was some years ago. I'm sure I'm saying things that others have said on your podcast, and maybe you guys have said yourselves, but years ago, I realized that as my fees were increasing by the hour, my efficiency was also increasing. So the faster I could do something, the less money I was making. Like what used to take, I don't know, an hour and a half to find the perfect XYZ. When I'm listening to them and talking to them, my mental inventory of product is vast. Like I already know if we're Lindsay Edelman land, or if we're visual comfort land, or if we're right. So my speed and my efficiency and my knowledge base, my library was earning me less money by the hour. And it became apparent to me, and I started to believe the idea that you don't pay me for what I do, you pay me for what I know. So you can't, if you task me, you know, like, oh, can you just pick out our light fixtures for me? Well, I might be able to do light fixtures in a house at this point in a day or two, all of them, bathrooms and, you know, do all of that. Where early in my career, it would have taken me some weeks. So which one gets paid more? Right? Like if I bill $300 an hour, but it only takes me 30 minutes to do something, I just made myself $150. Huh?
Well, yes, for sure. That is not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy.
We are fully hourly. So we're completely different, but we work on a professional fee schedule. And so like everyone on our team bills at a different rate. I bill at a different rate, but I'm also not doing a lot of the work now. I'm high level ideas. So I don't necessarily even track my time. So it's different.
And there are so many, I mean, there's our industry, good golly, Miss Molly, could we figure out one way to do things? I don't know.
Right? So, I mean, like this is a whole other like 4-hour podcast that we could go into how to bill. And maybe you and I could come out with a compromise.
Right. So years ago, I was billing at $300 an hour. And I was unsatisfied with how that was working out for me. And I also was ready to level up. I was getting too many yeses. My calendar was too full. Which meant it was time to level up, right? Your calendar is never too full.
It's time to,
raise your rates. And I did some math on my most recent projects. And then I gave myself a raise because it was level up time. And then I took that number and that became divisible. I'd mostly do new construction. Sometimes I do full home furnishings. But that became my monthly rate. And when we started doing this, I think when I started doing flat rate, it was maybe 60,000 a year. And then you divided that by the months and things have drastically changed since then.
Right.
So now we have a monthly. So if you want me to be your designer and design your house, and we think it'll take 18 months or 27 months or whatever, it's billable by the year divided by the month. And that's how much it is until the project is complete.
That's a really interesting model because, I mean, that's MRR, right? Monthly recurring revenue, and you can count on that month after month. Ours is extremely variable. So even the project that could go 36 months, it may be that, you know, in the very beginning, it's super time billing heavy. There's a lag in there. And then it's very time billing heavy once we're in construction administration.
So that happens for us too with our time. It's just that it is considered in what
right. That's an interesting model.
Right. And I used to do one price, and then I would bill it at retainer. When
so like milestone billing.
Milestones. And then I had a project that couldn't get permitted.
Mm-hmm.
And I made like 10 grand for
Yeah.
8 months. And I was like,
And these are the lessons you learn along the way.
I don't control the markers.
Out of your control.
So my money can't be controlled by things that I can't control.
Yes, totally.
So that was the end of that. And then we just moved it to monthly because that did not work. Didn't work.
So I'm going to get us off of the billing talk because good God, so April is financials month for our community in Design Dash. So we're going to be talking about this all month. I definitely need a follow up, but what keeps you passionate about this industry? Like I've been doing this 18 years. I've had my firm. I've been doing, in the industry longer. I've had my firm 18 years. I don't know where you are in that count,
I'm close to that. Not quite.
Okay. So what keeps you in it?
I mean, the level of projects, the level of detail, the level of passion, and we've started naming some of these legacy properties lately. And, we did the honeybee on Blackberry Mountain in East Tennessee. And then all the little lockers, when you enter, we etched into the cabinet door like this little honeybee track that the honeybee was flying around. And then, there's an umbrella and it has the logo and the little napkins that go embroidered with a little honeybee with a little flying dotted dash line behind it.
Love it.
So when we can soak all the way in, when we can live this house, when we can really become what this home will be and do for them. I mean, spark. Like I'm on fire for it. I'm on fire for it. Like that is what gets me going. It's what gets my team going. It's what when we can dig in that far, you have got me. I am your girl. You have my attention for sure.
I love it. Melissa, any follow-up questions before I do a couple rapid fire?
No, we can go into that rapid fire. I love that personalization though. I think that when you get to know a client that well, the personalization kind of is somewhat effortless, right? That you were able to put that together. You were able to put that together because you knew that client very well and you knew how they lived and what they wanted. And
they wanted to be dazzled. And that's when we get to run, right? Like when they want to be dazzled and you dazzle them and they're like, holy shit, I love that. Like, right? And then you do the next thing and then you do the next, that's when you're in a magical place with a client. And the fact that we've been able to repeat that magic and build out these really spectacular properties is so freaking rewarding. Like, how do I stay motivated? How can
That's the dream.
Right? How could I not?
Love it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. So just to cap us off, couple rapid fire.
Okay. Hold on. Can I pause? Sorry. Can I pause? Can I interrupt you for a second? Because I just felt my young self listening to what I just said. And I had that awful feeling of maybe your younger listeners or your listeners who haven't figured things out yet or aren't all the way there. And I do not like that feeling that comparison is the thief of joy. I believe in that. I don't want to be the girl that people are like,
good for you and your dazzle.
Right? Like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I started my business by hanging flyers in paint stores, offering paint consultations for $35 an hour. And the biggest day in those early days was when I got 2 hours for $70. So I do not forget. I do not take it for granted. I don't want someone to listen and be like, this is so unrelatable, because it is incredibly relatable. Like talking about that process stuff that we started with and then into fee structure and all of those things, that is work that has to happen in order to just you don't just fall off the $35 an hour paint consult into a legacy property.
Mm-mm.
There is a lot in the middle of that. So I don't want it to come off as glib or sounding easy or suggesting that if you're not doing that, like I don't want it to be any part of that feeling that people might have. I want it to be really clear that I did a lot wrong. And the difference is that I was willing to commit to the wrong in order to figure out the right and stay and grow and learn and be wrong and try again and all of those things. So I didn't want to leave on that note of, oh, life is just great. And you guys should go out and get your own legacy projects.
Right. No, of course. Yeah. Thank you. Actually,
I think that magic it's the stage that you're in, right? Like that, this is your magic now, or those legacy projects. But, years ago, it was those 2 hours that you got. That was the magic. And
that's a big damn deal, right?
I celebrated and I tried to figure out how I got them and I tried to figure out how to repeat it and all of that. I just was sick. I would have been sick if I walked away and didn't interrupt you and let
Thank
it
you.
out.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important.
That's just so easy, and that anybody who doesn't have that isn't doing something right. And that just could not be further from the way that I feel.
And I may have mentioned, I've had my firm 18 years. You are at that number or around that number. So yes, we did not come into, like you said, a legacy project 18 years ago.
No,
and if you do,
anyway, by the way.
I mean, if anyone listening is coming into a legacy project and it's year one, kudos to you. Excellent work. Mm-hmm. If you need any help and support, call me. Because I mean, I would have needed to build up to a project like that. I think it's a lot. It's a lot to do. There are like living and sinking into those details. That takes, like you said, tons of institutional knowledge that's just at your fingertips. So
systems and processes and errors and corrections and misery and tears and tummy aches and all of those things in order to get it and then to be able to do it well. And I do not.
If you're in your tummy ache era, that's just part of it.
Hang in there, guys. You can, if you'll learn from it, then you'll be better for it. But again, I don't.
Thank you for interjecting. Appreciate that.
I'm here to build people up. I do not want to just sit and be like,
look at me. So fucking fabulous.
Right? Yeah. I don't want to be that girl.
No, I appreciate that. Okay. So what is one design trend you secretly love right now?
Checkerboard floors.
Ooh, okay. Dig it.
I love it.
Black and white or any checkerboard?
I mean, we're doing sort of toned down, like tone on tan or, a little more tonal, but I like it if it is on Park Avenue and if it is on, in estates and things like that, it is never absolutely gone. It's just having a moment. And that's one that's having a moment that I can get behind.
Love it. Okay. Let's see. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird. I like to get up in some quiet and have a little marketing meeting with myself.
Lori and I are going to meet at 6 a.m. Lori and Lori. So, okay, biggest splurge in your own home or like the favorite thing. It doesn't even have to be a splurge, but like your favorite thing in your own home.
Bidets.
Ooh, dude, word. Right there with you.
Like I cannot be bothered to have to push a actual body, and I cannot have a cold seat.
That toilet seat better open as soon as I walk into the room.
That's right. Good morning, gorgeous.
Good morning. And it's lit. I don't even have to turn on a light. It is like, welcome.
Bidets. And they're not that expensive if you do it when you build.
That's true. I mean, well, it's relative, but yes.
Okay.
Yes. But worth every penny.
Worth it.
I mean, it's an investment.
Yes.
If you weren't a designer, this is our last question. If you were not a designer, what would you be doing?
I don't know. I just had this conversation, interestingly enough, with my husband. I think this business stuff I really like. I think figuring out and working through. So I think something where I could problem solve. I think my lack of skill in the beginning maybe would have gotten me fired if I worked for someone else. So maybe being my own employer, it would be important in this imaginary parallel career that I might have. So something entrepreneurial and creative that requires some serious thinking about correction.
Like a closet organizer.
Not your girl for that. But I do love when organizers come and organize my closet.
I do too. I would not do it myself, but
no.
right.
So, but yeah, that I think, using these muscles that are now super strong, I would be sad to not get to have had this feeling of having figured some things out on my own.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part that makes me say that the entrepreneurial piece is important to me, because I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the hard work and the figuring and the looking at mistakes and the sorting through the bones to find what went wrong and what my part was in it and what I intend to learn from this disaster and
someone else would have fired you.
I mean,
you got to work for yourself because you clearly cannot work for someone else.
Right.
Same. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really amazing. And I appreciate your vulnerability and openness. It's great.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. This is sort of an unexpected conversation. I did not get a script. I don't know if you guys had a script. I didn't get a script, so I wasn't sure.
There's no script. We're just going.
You guys, what we were going to talk about, but I feel like we talked about real things, and I'm grateful for that.
Thanks for joining us again, and we will catch you at some industry high point market, something in the future.
I'm going to get myself there soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast, coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on DesignDash.com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.